So today we are looking at a method for doing batik printing at home with flour and water paste. It's a really nice simple technique. We don't get messy or it's not dangerous with hot wax. It's a technique that people have used for centuries in places like Zimbabwe, Indonesia. It's really fun. You will need your flour mixture in a squeezy bottle. We've got the alum paste, alum powder, paintbrush, some water, a bowl or something to mix your paints in, calico, paints, a spoon, a teaspoon, and I think a knife is quite handy for stirring, something to cover your table with. If you have a hairdryer, can be quite useful, and an iron, but if you don't have those things, don't worry too much. So when you're mixing, you want to add a little bit of the alum powder. This is a preservative, so it just should stop any kind of nasty bacteria getting in. Missed a bit, so I'll just add a bit more. Just a teaspoon of the alum. You don't necessarily need it if you're going to use it kind of straight away and then clean it, but this should kind of stop any nasties forming in it. Then add a little bit of water and be really careful with the water. I think it's quite good to get a knife or something into your pot and then start to, you see, it's very thick. Add a teeny bit more. Don't go too much too soon with the water. If you do add too much water, it's just flour, plain flour. I mean, I suppose you could use self-raising flour as well. Not going to make much difference, but it's just flour and water. So keep stirring. A bit like pancake batter as well. If you leave it for a few minutes before you use it and then give it another stir, you can kind of get rid of some of the lumps a bit more. But that's my kind of thickish paste. Put the lid on and you can just check it. Pop a little bit. Yeah, you want it to come out, but not too fast. When you're ready, cover your table or surface that you're working on. You might want to cut your bits of calico into smaller pieces if you're experimenting, or you can just go for it. And then you use your squeezy bottle and you just draw your design out. You can draw freehand, or if you want to do, if you're a bit worried about that and you want to have a template to follow, you can draw it. Probably you want quite a thick black marker, and then leave that to dry so you don't get it on the back of your fabric, and then you can see it through the fabric and you can see where to put your paste. It's a bit of an organic process, so you have to be kind of prepared for, oh, it to maybe come out in ways you weren't expecting, but that is also what makes it interesting. So this acts like the resist in batik. So you can do any design you like. You could do like real life little fishies, you could do just abstract shapes, and you can go back into the design. So you could let this dry, you let this dry, put the paint on, and then do another layer as well, which I'll show you in a minute. Once you've got your flour and water paste, you can dry it with a hairdryer if you want to. It does take a while, or leave it to just dry somewhere. Mine actually took about 24 hours to dry, so it's not a quick process this, but it's quite fun doing all the different steps. So here are some that I made earlier. So these have got the paste on them, ready and dry to be painted. You can see that. And you can as well, if you want to get a nice batik effect, what you might want to do is just once it's dry, is just crack. Don't do it too much because it will all come off, but you can just crack the flour and water paste so it comes kind of like a, you'll get the kind of traditional batik look with it a bit more. So when you're painting, you want to you can paint straight onto the fabric. You could also water down the paints, so you could add a bit of water to your bowl and then add your paint in. And you can make it more of a kind of light way of painting it on. You might want to do all one colour, you could mix the colours, you might have some more paint left over from your original patches as well. You can kind of go, and this is just acrylic paint that we're, so it's watered down acrylic paint, because acrylic paint will stay on fabric if you iron it. Make it a bit darker in some places. So then you want to let that dry, or dry it with a hairdryer. Once it's dry, you then, this is the kind of tricky, fun, tricky-ish bit. You want to crack off the flour paste. So it's good to scrunch it up. To loosen the paste, and then you can kind of pick it off like this. It's also quite good to get your little knife in again, and you can help scrape the bits off. You want to get rid of the flour and water paste because you want to iron it before you wash it to fix the colour. So try and get as much off as you possibly can. And you can be quite rough with it, just trying to break it all off. It does take a little while. Okay, so my flour and water is gone from this one. I quite like it. I think it looks a bit like an underwater scene. So what you can do, what I'm going to do now, is think about doing another colour on top of that. So I'm going to work back into it, and I kind of want that to be the water on the outside. So I'm going to try and do a little fish shape. You could draw it. First, I'm just going for it. Doesn't really look like a fish, does he? What else does a fish need? A bit there. And then I'm going to do a kind of thicker outline, just so if I put the paint, I'm not going to cover the whole thing because I can be quite selective with my paintbrush. Some scales on it. So yeah, if I go in with my paintbrush now, I'll have this kind of bigger barrier. Once this is dry, have a bigger barrier where the paint is, so then I can just get the paint inside my fishy design. I've got doing a similar idea here where I've already got the colour on and washed it off, and then I'm going to make it into a sun and a moon. So once you've scraped off the design, you then need to iron it. You want to iron your design for probably about 3 or 4 minutes. Reasonably hot iron, just to set the paint, and then you can give it a good wash and get rid of the excess flour and bits and bobs that are on it. Once you've heat set it with the iron, if you give it a little wash under the tap with a little bit of soap and water, you can dry it again and then iron it just to set it, and you're done.